The Dark Voyager is invading Fortnite Reload and getting the final 0 point shard. So if you guys know, the Dark Voyager left Fortnite Save the World, because if you look at the world map of Fortnite Save the World, you will see the Dark Voyager is no longer there anymore, which is good news. But the bad news is, the Dark Voyager went to a reality that actually does have the final 0 point shard. That being the elite stronghold of Reality 337 in Fortnite Reload. That's right, the Dark Voyager is now in Fortnite Reload, using the Dark Harvester's tractor beam to get the final 0 point shard from the elite's armory. Because if you guys know, the final 0 point shard is in the elite's armory inside a glass container, and the Dark Voyager is using the Dark Harvester's tractor beam to get the final 0 point shard out of its glass container and out of the elite's armory so he can finally acquire the last 0 point shard. But it seems that the elites were already preparing for the Dark Voyager's arrival, because if you look around the entire island of the elite stronghold, you will see big gun turrets already begin to attack the Dark Harvester. So you may be wondering, how did the elites know that the Dark Voyager was coming to the stronghold? Well, if you look back at the Exalted Ice King's Battle Pass story quest, you may remember that one of his tasks was to report of one of the three factions you're helping him to eavesdrop. One of these factions being the elites. And if you were to report the elites to the Exalted Ice King, you would see a conversational dialogue between Jules and the elite Zadie, telling us that Jules' report was able to warn the elites of the Dark Voyager's arrival to their stronghold, allowing them to prepare themselves for his arrival using the gun turrets to already begin to attack the Dark Harvester. But unfortunately, the attacks are not doing anything to the Dark Harvester, because the Dark Voyager was already preparing for this attack, and already began to use the Dark Harvester's shield in order to repel the attacks from the elite's attacks. Which means the Dark Voyager was already one step ahead of the elite. Quite similar to what happened back in Chapter 7 Season 1 Pacific Break and Breakpoint, when we thought we can lie to the Dark Voyager to make him think we're going to join the Imagined Order. We find out that he actually played us in order for us to see that we are still loyal to the Seven as well. Which means not only the Dark Voyager not only played us back in Chapter 7 Season 1 Pacific Break and Breakpoint, but now he's one step ahead of the elite currently now in Chapter 7 Season 2 Showdown and Fortnite Reload in the elite's stronghold. Which is very bad. Because with the elite's attacks doing nothing to the Dark Harvester, this means that the Dark Voyager will finally complete his mission since the very beginning of Chapter 7. Because as you know, the Dark Voyager's main objective, his main goal, was to gather all 0 point shards across the Omniverse. And since he's already in Fortnite Reload getting the final 0 point shard, while also repelling the elite's attacks using the Dark Harvester's shield, this means that the Dark Voyager will now complete his mission for his mysterious master. And that will mean the Omniverse will now be in much more danger than we thought. Which means, if the Dark Voyager were to get the final 0 point shard and bring it back to the Golden Coast, we must find some way to end this rivalry between the Foundation and the Exalted Ice King. As you know, the Dark Voyager was the one who orchestrated this entire showdown rivalry between the Foundation and the Ice King. This means we have to find some way to convince the Ice King that we're not the bad guys, and the Dark Voyager is the main villain. That way we'll be able to team up with the Exalted Ice King and stop the Dark Voyager before he can repair the 0 point. But that would mean we have to also convince other people in his side to order to make sure that they can help us to fight the Dark Voyager as well, such as Scribbly, Dasha, and Lady Rinfrost as well. We also convince them to help us in the fight against the Dark Voyager. But that would mean we had to take a lot of convincing measures to convince the Exalted Ice King, Dasha, Scribbly, and Lady Windfrost, they were not the enemy, that the Dark Voyager is the main enemy. But since the Foundation doesn't want us to convince the Exalted Ice King to end the showdown, we had to find some other way to do so. That way we'll be able to stop the Dark Voyager once and for all. But we have to wait and see what's going to happen next in Fortnite Reload when the Dark Voyager is able to get the final 0 shard out of its glass container. Since again, the Elite's attacks from their turrets are not doing anything to the Dark Harvester. So yeah, that's it. That's all you guys need to know what's going on currently in Fortnite Reload. With the Dark Voyager now invading Fortnite Reload and getting the final 0 shard using the Dark Harvester's tractor beam, and the Elites were already preparing for his arrival and their attacks are not doing anything towards the Dark Harvester, things are now going to get bad when the Dark Voyager is going to get the final 0 shard soon and ever. So with that said, thank you all so much for watching this video. Comment down below what your favorite things to do in Fortnite creativity, buying players, Fortnite Ballistic, Fortnite Reload, the arrival of Fortnite Chapter 1 Season 8 OG, and Fortnite Save the World. Comment down below what your favorite moments in Fortnite Chapter 7 Season 2 Showdown, Fortnite Chapter 1 Season 8 OG, and Fortnite Save the World. Don't forget to comment down below what Fortnite theories you want me to discuss and debunk, and I'll gladly make videos about them. Subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you won't miss any videos from me, and I'll see all of you in the next video. Bye!